Good evening and welcome back to the Footy Visionaries podcast. After Gameweek 8, which was a fantastic game week, especially for my club and everyone else involved. I don't know about Rich, but he wouldn't agree as well. But starting with you, Rich, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Like I said, glad to be back after the international break. Looking forward to having a rant, a bit of a cussing session, and hopefully not get cancelled. There you go.
Fair play. And speaking of someone who might get cancelled for being too happy, is Khush. After this weekend, how are you feeling, mate?
I'm feeling great. But I think even though we had a good result, you can't say definitively what United will bring in the next couple of games. But I hope the United strand gets his haircut.
We need him to get his haircut. I mean, we're 2 games in, I think 3 games to go. We need him to get his haircut. That's all we need at the moment. Otherwise, there's going to be keeping rats in there, apparently from Old Trafford. But hey, who knows? All right, kicking off, we're going to start off with the first game, I believe, on Saturday, and that was Nottingham versus Chelsea. Chelsea ran riot. Another red card for them. I don't know what's happening with their discipline. But at the moment, Ange got sacked. Khush, how are you feeling about that?
I think with the sacking, I think it's unfortunate that the way he got sacked was just unfortunate. I think give him some respect in terms of him leaving the stadium and going back to like the training ground and stuff and having that conversation there, not doing it 39 minutes after the game ends. I think that's very awful of the club to do that. But I think as well as that, he came into the club with a reputation, well, basically a broken reputation after coming out of Tottenham because he didn't actually do too well there. He started off all right, but he didn't do too well there. And then he's come into Nottingham Forest because he had a good relationship with the owner. And I think it's just imploded. I think it's all imploded because that team was a very defensive team under Nuno, and Andrew's an attacking manager, and it showed how that team couldn't cope with that type of style of play, and it just led to a stalemate where they couldn't go forward or they couldn't go back.
But Rich, do you think it's Ange's fault or it is Marinaki's fault for just bringing chaos to the team? Because before this, the team was doing well. They qualified for Europe. They're in Europe now. They had a good season last season. He hired Edu. Things went wrong. He fired Nuno when there was no need to fire Nuno. And here we are.
Well, I would say it's not entirely Andrew's fault what's happened. As Chris said, the defensive team are very counter-attacking, where Ange wasn't. He was all out attack. You saw him get with Tottenham last season. He loved playing at high line, and the mentality of the Forest team, they're pretty all defensive counter-attack, and to change a team in that short space, it's not going to happen. Like the mindset is engraved in these players. They're professional, and they've worked so hard on tactics, on movements and teamwork that you can't change that overnight. But it does make you think as well. Is there more that's happening with the club, especially with like the Nuno sacking, and is like Edu and the chairman, conspiring? Are they causing issues? Are they ruffling a few feathers? Well, we don't know, but there's something deeper that's affecting the players' mindset. You can't go from having a amazing season the one before and come to this season and not knowing how to pass the ball, not knowing how to run, not knowing how to make tackles. There's something more to it than that. But I just think Ange was just set up to fail. And it was a shotgun appointment because he just thought, it's like mates rates, isn't it? Oh, I scratch your back and you scratch mine. It turns out no one's back got scratched. And they're both out, really, it's Andrew's on top because he's both got a nice little payout. You know what I mean?
I think with the Marinakis situation, I think in the space of his time at Forest and with both of his other 2 clubs, he sacked I think nearly 29 managers. Just take that in. 29 managers.
I didn't know it was that high.
Olympiacos, Rio Ave, and now Nottingham Forest. Can you imagine? He did the same thing with Martin O'Neill, where he didn't sack the manager. It was the director of football at the time that done it. So Marinakis doesn't actually sack them. He makes his henchmen do it basically. But 29 managers.
It's similar to Watford, isn't it?
It's similar to Watford. It's not how you run a club.
No. I think that just shows me, for example, when you talk about clubs being ruined from the top, this is it. Like if you look at the Glazers or United, whatever. Because last season, without Marinakis even, for example, let's talk about Nuno. He created a team. The team was playing well. Forest was like a good team to play against, for example. You know what? He got involved, he messed it up, and it's the thing of the owner. I think it's on the same scale as the Glazers, but it's just time the Glazers don't care that much about the club because Manakis cared too much and got too involved, but all end up with the club just being in disarray. So I just think, as a football owner, a football club owner, certain things should not do, get involved in, and just, leave the coach and people to do their own thing. And now let's talk about the appointment of Sean Dyche. He's back again. Dyche Ball is going to be back in the Premier League. I mean, he was never going to be gone for too long. How do you feel Nottingham Forest is going to do with Dyche Ball?
It'd be interesting how he does with a team like Forest, because he's always said throughout his career that he's a good manager, but he's never had the financial backing. But now he does. So he could be setting himself up to fail now, because he's saying, "Oh no, I need money." Well, he's gonna get the money with Forest. The amount they spent the last 2-3 seasons, especially their first season in the Prem with all them players, he's gonna get flooded with money. So I think we could potentially see the best of Sean Dyche. But I do worry that it's great being on the back row saying, "I can do this, I can do that." But when now he's leading, can he do it? I think it'd be very interesting, especially tonight, because I got Porto, I think. So it'd be interesting to see how they got on in that game. But again, you can't really tell, but it'd be interesting nevertheless.
With Sean Dyche, you are getting a defensive manager for a defensive team that always sits on the counter attack. If Forest fans are thinking they're going to get expansive football, if Marinakis thinks they're going to get expansive football, they're not. What they're going to probably get is quote unquote Brexit football, where if it shows how done it for Burnley and Everton, he's going to do the long ball up to Chris Wood, and he's going to try and hit them like that or on the counter attack. It's purely how Sean Dyche has been playing. It might suit them really well because they are a defensive team and they like to hit on the counter attack. And as Rich said, you might see the best of Sean Dyche at this point. And let's see what happens. He's on a long-term contract. I think he's on like a 2-year, 3-year contract. I personally thought that Forest were going to put him on a short-term contract, get him to the summer, and then they were going to look for a more high-profile manager. But they haven't done that. So they're taking a gamble, and it might blow up in their face, or it might be proven as a masterstroke. But if he gets sacked, that's number 30.
I've got a question for you guys, though. Is it like Forest, of course, they love playing 3 at the back, don't they? Well, they were a bit last season. Do you think it's gone out of fashion a bit now? Less and less teams are doing it, do you think? Or
Playing 3 at the back, is that?
Yeah.
I think it's only a select group of managers that want to do it, and they stick to their guns. People like Antonio Conte, Ruben Amorim, or whatever. Even Thomas Tuchel as well. There's certain managers who are known. I think even Gasperini at Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. There are certain people who are known for playing 3 at the back. But then the funny thing about it, and Inzaghi as well, Inter Milan last season, but the certain ways they implement the 3-4-3 is different. Because I think some of them play with 2 wingers, some of them play 2 strikers and 1 attacking midfielder, whatever. So the implementation is different. Whereas in Inter with that 3-4-3 is very much like a defensive side. Tuchel with his 3-4-3 is more attacking. So I think
it's still a very defensive formation.
It depends though, because if you look at Ruben Amorim with Sporting last season, he was never defensive. He literally played winger on those wing back. Kind of
it's different. It's different in the Portuguese league because you didn't have teams always on the attack. But if you look at Amorim at United, even though we haven't played as well, you see it always dropping into a back 5. So it does turn into a pretty defensive formation. So I understand what you mean, where it's a select group of managers, and with those managers, they have seen success with that formation. But again, it's only certain few managers. Most managers would rather play 4 at the back.
Yeah, I think it's how you tactically implement it. Like Khush was saying, like I said, if you look at Inzaghi was proper like defensive. He was switched from defensive to then just throwing attackers on and changing things. Whereas in Conte is more systematic. Tuchel is more like passing kind of play within that 3-4-3. So different managers. With Ruben Amorim, I think we're going to talk about it later, but there's certain things he can implement to make it a bit better / worse. So I don't think it's out of fashion. I just think certain managers are not brave enough. Yeah, I think they're not brave enough to do it. They're not brave enough to do it. Speaking of which, though, so Chelsea won again. they're quite inconsistent. So, I mean, first of all, do we think they're a title contender? I don't think so. Second of all, like, how can they actually bring that consistency? And why so many red cards? Kush.
Chelsea, they just they don't have the discipline. I think especially it comes from the manager. If you see the manager getting a red card in the third or fourth game, as players you're thinking, well, okay, if he's getting it doesn't show that discipline, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Because a manager, you're not meant to. I understand the emotions of the game, but you're the manager. You need to set that example for your team. And you're just getting silly red cards, like the Sanchez one, the Malo Gusto ones. Like, you're on a yellow card, man. Why are you doing a reckless challenge? You're 3-0 up. You don't need to make those types of challenges.
That's a Casemiro type challenge you did there, wasn't it?
Exactly. That's a Casemiro type of challenge. So you don't need to do that. And then at the same time, with Chelsea itself, you don't know what you're going to get every week. You're going to have 1 week where they're going to wow the world with their young stars. And then the week after, it's just inconsistent, where they're going to be like down bad. And then it's just, I think it comes down to the discipline of the squad. Like, you got key players like Caicedo and Enzo, good with the midfield. But then you have players like Reece James, who are like poster child for the club. But if you can't control your players in the sense of them not being disciplined on the pitch, and it comes from the manager itself, then what are you doing?
Right. I read that. And Rich, what do you think about Chelsea? Do you think they'll actually be mature enough as a squad and manager, querying this page, to actually mount a serious challenge at the title, or is it a bit more of, top four, maybe not, but that's it?
I think they're not going to mount a challenge for, I think, a couple of years yet. They sort of remind me of when Arteta took over Arsenal. The way they're playing like a young group, discipline lacked a bit, because we remember like Granit Xhaka used to always get sent off, but he wasn't the only player. You had other players on the Arsenal team that used to get red carded when Arteta came in. I could see sort of similarities. Okay, I know Chelsea's got a bigger squad and an overhaul squad, but I do sort of see similarities with how they're playing. And I think it's still going to be a very long project should they keep him in. But I don't think they'll be challenging for another 3-4 years at least, just because the way, Arsenal, Liverpool and Man City are playing. I just think it's going to be very difficult for them. And still, he doesn't know his best starting 11, which is never good. He's constantly chopping and changing, which is great to have that core, 5 or 6 of your backbone. But you want your team to name itself. And obviously, the Chelsea team at the moment isn't.
That is true. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen in Chelsea, but I mean, the Garnacho went there. He's not getting any minutes. So, I mean, he's got his freedom, I guess. But here we are. Moving on to the next game of the weekend, Brighton, Newcastle 2-1. Now, I was actually going to speak about Newcastle's inconsistency, which I guess is a point in itself. But actually, looking at Brighton, their last 5 games, they have not lost. They've won 3 and drew 2, I believe. I'll double check that just to make sure I'm factually correct. But is Brighton going under the radar here, Kush, with how they're actually performing?
Yeah, with Brighton, they're a very hard-working team, and they're very hard to break down. I think there's like a certain group of teams in the Premier League where you go to them, you're not too sure if you could get a result against them. It is all depending on the day, and I think Brighton's definitely one of them. But Brighton had a very good game, but is it due to them being hard to break down, or is it just Newcastle just underperforming a lot? Because if you look at the table, Newcastle's 14th. They're 14th. This is a team that finished in the top 5 last season. They're in the Champions League this season, and they're not performing well. And I feel they're going under the radar so much because they're not seen as a big club. Take it as you will. They are not seen as a big club right now. They got big backing by big owners. I wouldn't class them as a big club yet. But you can't take away from Brighton. I think Brighton had a great game. I think they set up very well against Newcastle. But overall, it's just Newcastle going under the radar and Brighton being that team that's always hard to break down.
Fair play. And what do you think, Rich? Sorry, do you think that Brighton itself is actually just going to be maintaining this kind of up and down form itself as well? Or is it just Newcastle who also need to prove themselves? Because I believe like they were actually impeded by that whole Isak thing. Isak moving out, will he not stay? Him then bringing a striker later, but Voldemort was a great striker, I think. But then do you think that kind of caused to lead to where Newcastle are at the moment?
I think so. Yeah, I think losing like Isak for them is like I compare it to like you losing the love of your life sort of thing. Like she's walked out the door and you're trying to move on to the next girl, but you're always thinking, oh, but she was better and this girl doesn't match up to what I want in my life. And I think they're just going through that bit of heartbreak this season from losing him. I get they hated him after it, but still he was very popular in the fans who adored him. But again, similar to last season, they didn't start very well either. But then they started picking up around Christmas time, and after Christmas, they then started pushing again. So I just think it's about amount of time. They've now got the new striker, and Wisa's G's back as well. So it'll be interesting to see how he integrates back into the team. And I just think a lot of the players are probably misfiring. Not in Europe. They're doing very well in Europe. They're pumping teams most weeks. But they're just struggling a bit. However, I just think Brighton they'll just be that baseline team, middle of the table team. But I will say though, Danny Welbeck, like his finishes from the weekend. I said to my mate a couple of weeks ago, I said, I think when the England squad came out and they brought, I think Ollie Watkins was in there. I said, why isn't Danny Welbeck coming back in the England fold? I get he's 34, but I think it was maybe, I think Frank Lampard went to World Cup when he was 36. Ricky Lambert was 34 when he went to a season. I think Danny Welbeck is very underrated at the moment, and he has been for the last couple of years. Like I know he's great for you.
I think he's been underrated throughout his entire career, to be fair. He's been always that player where you always see him, but you never really rated him. And that's why I agree, he's very underrated. And I think it's just an injustice that he hasn't got the props that he deserves.
A lot of injuries as well. He suffered a lot of injuries.
Can we actually say he didn't get his chance? I mean, at United, yes, he was an understudy to like good strikers, which is fair. But went to Arsenal, he was kind of like one of the main people for a while, at least to try kick that up. He didn't take the chance with both hands. Is there now a thing of now he's getting a bit more consistent football, he's a bit older, he's a bit wiser, and it's just happening for him? Because I would argue that at Arsenal he got his chance. I mean, he was one of the main people there. They didn't have anyone really. He was playing with almost week in, week out. So could he say that he didn't get a chance at Arsenal?
I think it was purely because it's his injuries that derailed his career. He had a lot of injury problems coming through, and I think that's just unfortunate. I think now he's gotten to a point where he is quite healthy and he's showing consistency, and it might be due to age, but it might be just due to him being able to play more consistently.
I think it always comes down to as well with him. Maybe he, maybe big fish, little pond syndrome, or maybe he just feels very appreciated at Brighton. Maybe he just feels like the arm over his shoulder, like we'll use you wisely. Just do you do what you do best and score, and we'll feed you. Maybe he just being nurtured a bit better.
Fair. I just think, I think now he's, well, the one thing I think he has at Brighton, which he possibly didn't have at other teams, is that he's getting fed. Because Brighton actually do feed their strikers wherever the striker is. And I think that consistent feeding is actually happening at the same time. And to be fair, his goals for Brighton have come in very important times. So, I mean, kudos to him. I hope he has a great, season and all that. But I think also Brighton also plays a role in, they actually play good football. They're a good footballing around team. Defensively, they can be compact. Midfield is quite good. Even the attack, they always create chances for their people. You got Mitoma on the one side, Minte. So I think it's a combination of the both. Quickly moving on to Burnley Leeds, a battle of two teams who were similarly placed, similar kind of like form and everything as well. Both recently promoted. Burnley won 2-0. Is this an indication of who's going to like finish on top of the other in terms of come the end of the season?
It's very hard to say in terms of end of the season. I think this is an indicator of where both teams are at the moment compared to like the other promoted team, which is Sunderland, who are doing really well. I think everyone expected Burnley to basically be a rollover every week. I would assume because they didn't really invest in their squad, and not many people thought of Leeds as the team to achieve too much, but were able to stay up. But I think, as you said, they're both in a similar situation now where they're both technically might be fighting a relegation battle if they're not careful enough. But they're just, I think both teams are just unlucky, but at the same time inconsistent.
True. Rich, what do you think? Who's going to finish above Burnley, Leeds? Who's going to take it? And also, side note, I had Dubravka on my FPL and it was on my bench, and he got 9 points. He got 9 points, and Pope was my main keeper. He got 2 points. I'm livid. But anyway, sorry. But back to you, Rich. That was just my horrendous FPL. But what do you think?
I think that all three clubs that have come up are quite interesting this season, because their mentality has changed. But Burnley for me has surprised me a lot. I thought that they'd get battered every week because they've come up. They've not really done much, but then bringing in Kyle Walker was that a stroke of genius. Having the amount of experience he's got, that can do a lot for a club who's really not had much Premier League experience for a while. I also think it could be down to, I think they'll stay up ultimately. I think Leeds will stay up. I think Sunderland will. Burnley, I don't think they score enough goals. They've only really beaten the clubs that have come up, which again last season they had quite a bit of a shooting issue. But I think one thing I think quite interesting is I think three clubs have also been very underestimated by the whole league itself, because again last 2 seasons now the three have come up, have gone down, and it's that sort of thing that when a big team from Premier League plays them, they're probably thinking, oh, this is going to be easy. They're not going to put much of a fight. They're not half quality, and they will get surprised. That's what I reckon.
Fair. Yeah, I'm not even sure what to call on this one. I don't even know. I think it's going to be interesting to see who's going to survive. But both teams for me don't look like the type to go down yet. I think they're more the teams which are in more trouble than both teams, in my opinion, to go down. But moving on to Man City versus Everton. Routine 2-0 win for Man City here. And I've just got a question. Was this Man City just being too good for Everton? I mean, Haaland, 2 goals, is in the form of his life at the moment. Probably going to run away with the Golden Boot. And also, does this also highlight how much Everton are going to be reliant on Jack Grealish? Rich, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is showing Man City who they actually are again. I think they're finally, everything's clicking for them again. And it's just working. They're overwhelming teams, whether they've changed their style of play, whether they've gone away from this pass the ball, can't go forward, let's go back again. And they just think, you know what, we've bought in these players now. I won't be able to name all their names because I'm terrible with names, but they bought these new players and who are willing to run at people, whip stuff into a box for Haaland. And I just think he's getting fed a lot, and they've changed it, especially losing De Bruyne. They've had to get assists somewhere. So I think they've changed their setup this season. And that's where Everton, I think they're heavily relying on Jack Grealish this season. Of course, he couldn't play because he's a lone player. And I think they'll still do well, but they're struggling a lot at the moment because they're not scoring again. Beto's not scoring either. I don't think they really have a backup striker to him, not as far as I'm aware. So I think it was Man City at their best, and it was Everton were trying to get in there, but weren't doing enough essentially.
And Khush, what do you think? Because do you think that
Can I put a quick question through?
Yeah.
Do you think the rule of lone players not being able to play against their parent club is a good idea?
Yes.
Why?
I don't think it really matters.
It shouldn't, but I think it's. I'm speaking from a fan perspective. If I know that this player is on loan at another team, and then they're able to induce a hurt on my team again, I just welcoming them back will just feel very. It's like being laden with lead.
They do it for UEFA competitions though.
They
James
do it, and
Rodriguez scored against
the player that came to mind was Coutinho. Remember, Coutinho helped destroy Barcelona the one time,
Oh yeah,
and then he had to go back to Barcelona. You know what I mean? Is that kind of like the return part of it? For us, it's fantastic because we get to see drama, all that. But then for the player itself, if you potentially have to go back to your club, I think it's just I don't know. I'm just thinking about player welfare in this moment, like with the fans and everything like that. You know what's going to
But
happen to the player and all that.
but
From
as a
me
player,
as a fan as well, I'm just going to feel it's going to take me time to warm up to them again after that has happened. You know what I mean? So I'm a bit. I don't know
but
how to feel.
as a player, going against your own team, knowing they didn't give you a chance, is that big fight that you need to like. I'm gonna beat you. I'm going. I'm gonna. I'm. That's what I want to do.
But then what happens after?
I think that's what Coutinho felt. I think that's what James Rodriguez felt as well when they played against Real Madrid when he was Bayern Munich.
I feel that, but then just the potential implications of that. Like sometimes you might not be welcome back. Sometimes you might then face more. For example, let's say you don't secure that move away from the club because maybe like alone. Let's be real. If you're going alone, these are the two things. You're young, you need to develop. There's no game time for you. You need to move on. One of those two things. So let's say, for example, James Rodriguez did a madness against Real Madrid, like proper, did something, the fans are mad at him, and then he comes back to the Santiago and the fans are on his back and everything like that. It's just,
I
I
think
can
with
see
those
the
types of
potential.
players, I think with those types of players, like if you go on loan and you're a superstar and your team loans you out, you're basically your career's gone with that club.
That's exactly what I'm saying. But then what if something like doesn't happen? You know, it's a transfer market. Like deals don't happen. Look at Sterling right now. He's not with he's literally being paid not to do anything. You see that kind of stuff. It's just going to be awkward on the return, which I understand, you know, like allowing them to play, but on the return it's going to be even more complicated than it is. But to be fair, there's no actual reason that I can think of besides just fan loyalty and whatever that it can't happen, in my opinion.
But yeah,
So,
yeah, with Man City Everton, I think you're seeing a resurgence in Man City in that they're playing a way that will that so they're playing a way that's showing the league that they can play a different way. I think Pep is hasn't rebuilt his squad properly. I think he's very reliant on Haaland. I think Haaland's dragging them through. I think they're missing players like Rodri still, but they're still getting results. I think they're gonna take it to Arsenal this season, but it depends on how consistent they'll be. Again, I'm banging on again. I'm banging on with consistency. I think that's been a big point this season with loads of teams. Is that no one's very consistent this season, if you get what I mean.
except for
Again,
Arsenal,
with
Arsenal.
apart from Arsenal, Arsenal have been consistent as well. They're the only team that's been properly consistent. Everton wise, I agree. I think they're very reliant on Jack Grealish. You can see from his stats this season where he's like the top assister and his chances created are one of the top or one of the top. Um, and you could see in that game where they weren't getting where Better wasn't actually getting that much service. They looked kind of flat going into that game, and yeah, the only kind of good spark in that team is probably Iliman and Jai.
Yeah, he's a good spark. And Rich, what do you think? Do you think that actually Man City can maintain the title challenges to Arsenal? Are they looking like the main contenders now? Like if we like look at Liverpool's form and whatever, and for that to happen, do you think is Haaland dragging them through or them playing well? Because should they lose Haaland, do you think they'll continue this?
I think they're the main. I'll say they're still joint with Liverpool as a main title threat. I get Liverpool, lost 4 in a row, but you still can't write them out. But I do think Man City, they're playing Champions League football at the moment. But I think it will all catch up with them. And I think Haaland, he always seems to go on the goal drought. He's skiing like he did last season again. He scored, I don't know, 10, 12 goals, and he didn't score for a month or two. And I just
Yeah,
think that if they were to lose him, there's not a backup striker. They have to probably go for that false 9 again. But then Mamouche can also do the role, and he proved it last season. So maybe I've just shot myself in the foot there with that comment. But I do think that they will struggle if he were not to be there because he's just unreal at the moment, even for his club, country. Sorry, you just can't stop him. But is he one injury away? He's not had a bad injury yet. I'm not wishing injuries on players, but every player has one in their career. And is
that's true.
he, if he were to get one, would it affect them? I think it would.
100%. Yeah, I think, for example, I think City are in that middle, like Khush was saying, of kind of like revamping themselves, moving away from that old squad. rebuilding with that new squad. Pep's trying to see who's going to be part of it, who's not going to be part of it. Reinders looks like a good signing, in my opinion. I think, yeah, for me, yeah, he's been a good signing. Donnarumma signing of so far. So, yeah, I just think we're still yet to see that Man City identity come through, and Haaland for me is just pushing them through at the moment. And to be fair, he's an incredible force. So, by all means,
Have you
'cause
have you noticed with the old City squads that Pep had? He had like David Silva and then into Kevin De Bruyne. He doesn't have that in this squad. If you see that, he doesn't have that out and out playmaker that will can do a pass that just change the game or has that moment of just pure assisting. If am I wrong?
I think you're right. Definitely at the moment, but I think this is where if you look at people like Shirky, he's still very young, to be fair. Like Shirky is still extremely young. So maybe if you bleed him into the system, you bleed him into like the intensity of the league. I think he is that one guy who like eventually, if you start now playing around with Foden, for example, like leaving Foden in or out, or maybe putting Foden in the wing, taking Doku out and then putting Shirky in there. So that's like Reinders and Shirky and then Foden coming on the wing, cutting in, all that. So I think Pep is still trying to figure out how to do that. But I think, to be fair, in Shirky, they have a young guy who can actually do that.
I think Shirky
But
plays similar way to Foden anyway. The way they play,
it does.
they both the way they both attack, they dribble into the defender and try to take on the defender. They both can pass, but they rather take on the defender and try to go through that way instead of passing the ball. And you can, if you saw that last season with the United Leon game where Cherky was the main man. And what did Cherky do most of the time? He didn't pass the ball. He ran at the defenders.
I can see that. But I think the what difference between Foden and Shirky is just Shirky has just a touch more finesse, just a touch
Yeah,
more than Foden. So
he's got that
maybe
ego.
exactly. So maybe he can be. But you're right. I don't see anyone who can actually step up into right. Cool. I'll take the game on me. I'll control the midfield. I'll do that. Rodri's injuries are gonna keep on recurring now. I think it's sad to see. Well, let me not say sad, but I wouldn't wish bad on anyone. But it's terrible to see that happen to a player. There we go. That's the word. It's unfortunate to see this happening to Rodri. Let me say this.
Chop the flowers.
But
Chop the flowers.
Rodri, if you're hearing this, look, I don't wish any injuries on you, but I'm not a fan of the way you won the Ballon d'Or. But no one deserves injuries. I hope you come back, strong and all that. Moving on. So moving on to the Crystal Palace and Bournemouth game. This was the game second. This was the second best game of the weekend, in my opinion. What a game it was. 3-3. Crystal Palace snatching an equalizer like right at the end of that Mateta penalty. Mateta, first of all, one of the most informed strikers right now. Yes or no, Rich?
Yeah, you can't argue with what he's doing. He's just phenomenal. Where he's come on from the last couple of seasons, he's just got better and better. And I think I said a couple of weeks ago when I'm still surprised no one went for him pre-season in a summer transfer window. I'm surprised he wasn't snapped up by someone because I think that he would have been a cheaper option, especially for you guys and the one you've got. I think he's proven as a Premier League goal scorer. He's unfortunate not to get his fourth goal at the weekend to win the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was him and Haaland are just both unreal at the moment. But you could argue Mateta's doing better because the squad that he's in, he's got a fantastic squad behind him, but he hasn't got the assists or the playmakers like Man City have. So you could argue he's slightly doing better, in my opinion.
But do you think it's a thing of the team that's behind him, or him being like one of the only strikers in the league alongside Haaland, who's kind of like a bully, big, strong, not as fast as Haaland, like nowhere near as fast as Haaland, but he's big, he's strong, he will fight you off the ball, and then he will use his move and whatever. Do you think, because I think strikers like him now are a rare breed. There's only him, Haaland in the league that I can possibly think of right now. Sesko maybe like when he gets into form, you know what I mean? So that breed of striker, do you think it's because of his thing as a striker, or it's just because he lost Eze? They lost Eze, but they're still, he's still hustling and getting those goals.
I think with Mateta, he's a great striker. I think he's proving that throughout the seasons. But I think he suits the system that Glasner puts forward, because he came in during Roy Hodgson, and he didn't hit the ground running as other players did. And only when Glasner came in did he start to hit the ground running. So he suits that system because he does, even though he doesn't get as much joy when it comes to passes coming to him, he knows how to latch onto a ball. He knows how to bully defenders, as you said. I think this is. He's a great striker. Don't get me wrong. I think. Don't take that away. I'm not taking that away from him. But I do think the system plays very well into his hands.
You say that though, but do you think that Zaha would have caused him not to be more of a focal point? Because when he first started, Zaha was the main man, wasn't he? And now he's gone. I just think that he's maybe had more opportunity to shine, and he hasn't really got many competition. He doesn't have Eduardo anymore. I think he's moved on now. And then you got what's it, Eketiah? Is the ex-Arsenal striker?
Yeah.
He's there, and he's really not pushing him. But I just think losing Wilfred, I think he's able to then push on and go like, I am the man. I am now given the opportunities where beforehand he wasn't.
Yeah, I think that team had Michael Elise and Eze as well.
True.
I think.
Interesting you say that, Khush, because like when they had Elise and Eze, like them three created like a potent front three, to be fair, between the three of them, like Mateta, Elise, and Eze. I mean, obviously, I think at that time,
I don't think Mateta was playing. I think it was Zaha, Eze, Elise.
No, it was Mateta. Like, so when Zaha left, it was that front three. I mean, Mateta was not as prolific because Elise and Eze were doing the things, obviously. But that's how it started. And then Glasner came in and just kind of modified it a little bit and all that. But speaking of which, I think I have to give Glasner his flowers. He's lost his main creative outlet in Eze, and he's still doing well. Like, the goals have not dried up, because I thought the goals would dry up, but no, they've not dried up. They're still going, they're still playing, they're still, getting results. So I think credit to Glasner, and I think he's one of the most, well, he's not underrated now because people are singing his, giving him his flowers and all that. But I think if he continues like this, he's a manager to watch for, actually. And interestingly, he's one of the managers who played that 3 system in a very attacking way. It's not just defensive. So
who do you think's having a better season though, Bournemouth or Palace?
Palace
better season.
Bournemouth.
It's just Bournemouth. No, hear me out. Hear me out on this. Palace almost lost their captain and their best defender. They didn't, but then they lost their main creative outlet, and it was going to be interesting to see if they're actually going to push on and create from that. Not only did they do that, but they were, I think, the team with the longest unbeaten run, and then they were beaten just after they beat Liverpool. So to that they went,
Josh,
was it 19 matches? 19 matches unbeaten in all competitions. In all Khush, 19 unbeaten in all competitions.
Josh,
I know some of it is last season.
I'm gonna counter your argument right there. Bournemouth lost their entire back line. They've lost their entire back line, and they're They're 4th in the league.
But look who Crystal Palace had to play though. Crystal Palace had to play in-form Arsenal chasing a league title. They had to play Liverpool twice. They had to play a champion Liverpool. Then they had to play Liverpool in the FA Cup final, which they won, by the way. They had to play Liverpool in the Community Shield, which they won as well, yeah? And then in the league this season, they were the last team to go unbeaten.
I think, I agree on that. But in terms of this season, I believe Bournemouth are playing better. You could tell from the league. You can tell that teams, when they play them, Bournemouth are going to take the game. They're not going to lie down. And again, that comes with the manager as well. Iriola is doing a brilliant job there. And bear in mind, Iriola was, when he started, didn't have the greatest start, and they predicted him to be sacked. And the club stuck with him, and look, they're bearing fruit at the moment. In terms of, you're saying, Crystal Palace lost this player, they've almost lost this player. Iriola has had to reconstitute his back line, entire back line. Hoyson went to Real Madrid. Kirkesh went to Liverpool. I think Senesi's still there.
Senesi's still there.
Yeah, they lost
If
their. I forgot who their left back was. They lost
they're
they
less than
lost their back
Kirkes.
line, and I don't think they have an out and out striker as well. So I think
No,
in terms of that system, to be fourth and to still be able to perform at a higher level, can't take it away from Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth are personally having a better season.
fair. No, I feel you, but for example, I think, if you say fourth, which is great, by the way, I think it's just 2 points though, because like Bournemouth have 415, Palace have 13, but I just think the fact that this season, let's forget about last season, just this season alone, they won silverware against the champions. They were the last team to go unbeaten, and Community Shield, they were the one against Liverpool,
No one
which
no one
Liverpool
really
at that
counts the
time was
Community Shield.
fair for Crystal Palace. Come on, if it's a United, Liverpool,
I'll
whatever, fair, but
I'll say
Crystal
put
Palace.
respect on Crystal Palace. Put respect on Crystal Palace.
Nah, fam. Listen, let's not act like let's not act like they were top four contenders to like
They're
last
not
5 years
top
or
four
whatever.
contenders. Don't get me wrong. They're not top four
That's what I'm
contenders. But
saying. So
put respect on them with the
nah,
way
it's
they've gone about
silverware,
their
bro.
season. But you
It's
can't just
silverware,
say,
bro. Like
"Oh, for Crystal Palace, that's good for them." That's not the case.
it is, bro. No. Look, listen. Okay, chat. Please, we're gonna put out a vote. Can Crystal Palace consider the Community Shield silverware for the season? I think they can. I think they can. They're not a club which traditionally wins anything in the English major honors awards. If we're being honest, if they're not a club who regularly wins like the English major awards, getting something, albeit the Community Shield, because you've gone for something. You know what I mean? I think if you're
It's
Man
not a proper
United,
trophy,
Arsenal,
man. It's
Chelsea,
just
Liverpool,
it's a
Spurs,
preseason
of course,
trophy. It's basically like the equivalent of winning the Audi Cup.
you know what? Fair. I'm
Well,
gonna put
okay,
this on the
you
vote, and then we'll see
you
what they
say
say.
that, but
Okay, in fact,
if
no, Rich.
United,
Before we put on the vote, Rich, what do you think?
well, I think they both have fantastic seasons. But if you would have to
I
pin me
think
down,
we have.
I would say that
I think there was some
Bournemouth
technical
have been
difficulties
more.
there.
Oh, do you know what I mean? What about
Yeah,
that?
we
Can
can
you
hear
hear
you
me
now.
now? Yeah, sweet.
Yeah.
I was saying that both are having fantastic seasons. I think Bournemouth are better to look at when it comes to football. I think the way they move, the ways Semenyo, way he just rips people apart. He's unbelievable. But I just think that Crystal Palace have that nitty grit about them. They're like your working man's club, quite like look back in the coal mine sort of thing. They're willing to smash things out. Where Bournemouth are more your fancy pants, I think. But look, I think that what Palace have had to go through, I think they probably had a better season so far, in my opinion.
Yeah. And Rich, do you think that Palace can count the Community Shield as silverware?
It depends how you look at it. I mean, if you're for a club like Palace, again, with West Ham, if we won a Community Shield, we'd be happy. If you're a bigger club like Man U, for instance, you're winning the Community Shield, you're probably not as fussed about it because no one really. It's one of them games, isn't it? Because as a football player, I don't know what goes through their heads, but you don't put your all. It's more like a friendly than a proper competitive thing. Before as mid-table, bottom table club, it's massive for your team. So I think for Palace, I think it is. It's big for us, but I would say as a West Ham fan, if West Ham won it, we won the Conference League. Argue it's a Mickey Mouse one, but it's a great thing for us. So I think for a club like Palace, yes, if you were a big winner like Man City, Liverpool, you could probably see like it's a nice additive to the trophy cabinet.
Yeah.
I think with the Conference League, it is still more competitive than the Community Shield because clubs don't actually put as much emphasis on it. That might be coming from Rich, coming from me, because I support Man United, and again, I agree. Maybe teams for like Crystal Palace or West Ham or mid to lower table teams that they might find it as a big trophy or not big trophy, as a trophy to add to the cabinet for them. But for me personally, I don't believe it's a trophy to consider at the beginning of the season.
But you also have to think you've beaten the league champions as well from the season before, and that's a big accomplishment in itself. So I think you've got to add that into it as well.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But anyway, to be fair, I'll put this
Joshy,
on a
Joshy,
vote,
Joshy, it's
and
time
we'll
for
still
your
vote.
favorite team.
Really. Anyway, as Khush is saying, it's not my favorite team, but I do have a soft spot for Wolves. Very soft spot in my heart for Wolves. But unfortunately, things seem to be going wrong. So Sunderland continued their good run of form when they came up against Wolves 2-0, comfortable. Both halves were Sunderland's easily at that time. First of all, Khush, like you were saying, Sunderland, surprise package, but playing very well, very, very good football. And what's the ceiling for Sunderland this season? What do you think is the highest they can achieve? The kind of like, where they can go?
I think they're going to get top half. I honestly, maybe 10th. 10th would be good. I don't think they can sustain for the entire season. But they in terms of their recruitment, they've done really well with their recruitment, especially bringing a player like Nordi Bukiele into the team, who's been fantastic for them. I think in terms of that squad is just very well put together. I think Regis Fabrice is doing a very good job in terms of he's already got a cohesive unit going, even though there's like stars that he initially hasn't worked with. Like Brandon Jack is bringing experience to that team. Then you got like Bertrand Traore, who wasn't on that team as well. And then you look at that bench. He's got a wealth of Premier League experience and top league players that played in top leagues. You got Simon Adingra, proven Premier League, played for Brighton, bit inconsistent for Brighton when he was there, but still. Then you had Arthur Masuaku, who was quite decent for West Ham. And then you have like Mayenda and Brian Brobby, who were always looked at talents in when they were at their previous clubs. But then you look at the other side. You look at Wolves, 8 games, 2 draws, 6 losses. It's not something that's sustainable to continue like this. I think something needs to give as like, why are they performing like this? It can't be just like one player in Cunha to leave, or like, I know they lost a few more players, but none of them as important as him, just for them to just drop off a bridge. They just dropped off a cliff, sorry. And it's just so shocking how they play all right. I think you might be a bit you would go against me on that, but they play all right, but they're not playing like wow, if you get what I mean. In terms of like stats wise, they do get let off a lot of shots, but they don't actually hit a lot on target. And it's just too much passing, not enough to finish.
Rich, what do you think the problem is with Wolves here? Like, why can they not just be a cohesive unit and just get something running? Because at the beginning of the season, I was willing to say, you know what, tough start. You had to play some pretty big teams and all that. But now it's been 8 games. Like Khush was saying, 6 losses, 2 draws. What's going on?
I think it's under recruitment. I just think that whoever's in charge of recruitment at Wolves at the moment isn't doing a very good job. They're not playing it. They were previously when they, of course, when they brought all your Portuguese players through, which was years ago, and then you started to build on that. But right now, you've lost a lot of good Wolves have lost a lot of good players. Okay, Kilman, who's come to us, we got our judgments about him, but 40 million for him didn't really bring anyone in to replace him. They had, I think, Matt Dawson for a bit, who was a great centre back, again from a West Ham fan point of view. He's gone now. Didn't replace him. Bowley went to Forest. Didn't really replace him. So for me, it's recruitment. They got rid of Kuna, and who they brought in? Strand Larsen. He's not doing too well. I know Newcastle wanted him. He scored maybe 3-4 goals. That's including cup games. I just think they're not gelling. They're not gelling. The fans are probably trying to keep motivated, but if they're not doing well on the pitch, the fans are going to turn. So ultimately, yeah, I think it's just recruitment.
It's
I
a
just
shame. It's
think
a
that's the
shame for
issue.
Wolves. It's a shame for Wolves because actually I really do rate their manager. I think Vitor Pereira is a very good manager. I think he's just in a shit situation. I think, as Rich rightly said, the recruitment's been awful. They haven't really replaced anyone, as Rich said. Ruben Neves didn't replace him. Diogo Jota didn't replace him at the time. What's his name? The right back, Matt Doherty. When he left, they didn't
Uh,
replace him, but then he came back.
yeah.
Um, Even Rui Patricio, I think Jose Sal's not a good goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think for me as well, like I really like the manager. So I can see what he's trying to implement in his team, and he was at any other team. Fair, I think I'll give him like I actually think he'll do well, but in this Wolves team, he just like which was saying, he doesn't have the equipment. So yeah, unfortunately, they are ones to watch for. Then quickly going up to North London, Arsenal in a very hard fought win against Fulham. So this is we're discussing this on the back of Arsenal having won 4-0 against Atletico Madrid, which people were calling the Haram Ball derby because, two defensive teams going head to head, and all that. So back in the league and all that, we see Arsenal really relying on set pieces, even against Atletico Madrid when won 4-0, like predominantly it was set pieces which brought those goals in. Do you think Arsenal fans will be happy, like, let's say, with how Arsenal's performing in the moment, or right now it's all about let's get the wins in, the consistency, just build on the points tally, and let's do it. Kush, what do you think?
Arsenal fans do not care at all. I think they just want the win. I think they're starving for something to win. They need silverware now. I think 6 years of improvements and building up to this moment. I think this is the best point. I know I said at the beginning in the podcast I don't think they're going to win anything, but now looking at it, I was wrong. This is the best. This is the best year for them to win the league. If they do not win the league, then the question needs to be asked: why are they not winning the league? Um, Set piece FC it is getting results. You can't say it's not getting results because it's getting results. And I hate to say it, but they are looking very consistent, and especially against. I said earlier with Brighton being one of those teams that are hard to break down. Fulham are one of those teams that are hard to break down, and they gave Arsenal a lot of problems coming through to this. But Arsenal are grinding out the results. They weren't able to do that last season. They drew with Fulham last season 1-1 in these critical moments. And it's not just the big games they need to win. It's these types of games they need to win. And they're doing it.
Right.
And they're doing it consistently. Even despite the way they're winning. I think in the end, it comes to you, no matter how you win, you're winning. Because in the end, the end game is the Premier League. And they're showing a very consistent way of doing that, which they weren't showing last season.
Fair, that's true. And Rich, what do you think? I think I've been impressed more likely with Arsenal with their defense. Their defense has been strong, obstinate, resolute, and the reason they're winning some of these games by the one odd goal and whatever is because they score, you can't get past them. So, I mean, listen, we've always said, defenses win titles, strikers win matches, goals win matches. So is it a thing of their defense is so sorted that now with every other team being inconsistent, it's like almost a shoo-in for them to actually win it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. Their defense is it's unbelievable. And the most important thing they got this season is depth. Like if Calafiori's injured, they got Lewis Skelly, and who can also do midfield if needs be. Bringing Eze in, Odegaard is injured. You just got to slot into place. Depth all over the pitch is just really good. It's just fantastic. And Raya is just year after year, it's got better and better. I was one of those people who were judging him when Ramsdale was there, thinking, why are you bringing this geezer in? Ramsdale was class, but now he's proven why he's brought in. Because he's in itself a game changer. If the defense slips down, Raya's going, all right, get past me then, sort of thing. I will say with Arsenal, though, that they aren't a very good defensively, but going forward, they are quite frustrating to watch, in my opinion. because there's some days, like you said, against Atletico, where they will rip them apart. They can rip teams apart, but there's other games where they can't. And it's like, why have you got that on and off switch? Why can't you do that constantly? I guess players get tired, I understand that. But they just don't seem to have ability to go, right, we're just, like Man City do, we're just going to run through everyone. Arsenal do it the hard way, in my opinion. And
They're still getting results.
yeah. Well,
But
exactly.
here's
And
the
I
thing,
said that.
though. But here's the thing, just when you say it, Rich, like they're doing it the hard way, right? Do you think that's what contributes to them not winning anything at the end of the day? Because if you're doing everything the hard way from day one, at some point you've got to get fatigued. You know what I mean? At some point you're going to get tired of doing things the hard way, and it's going to catch up to you, like with all the squads. Is this why Arsenal let us fall off at the end of the season? Because they're so used to doing the hard way, the hard way, the hard way. Come like mid to like that 3/4 way to the season, 25% of the season, they're now getting the effects of doing it the hard way. You know, mentally, physically, they're like drained. So do you think that's what happens then?
I think previously, yes, because they didn't have the squad depth, you know, and also injuries. Injuries, working hard, you get injuries. I don't think injuries will really affect them now. Even if Gokares got injured, I really don't think they have any issues whatsoever with their team. And they're interesting to watch. But yeah, do the hard way. As I said at the start of the season, when they beat Hughes 1-0, like they're a good team. They can grind out their wins, which is amazing. But you don't want to do that week in, week out, which they seem to be doing a bit. But then again, Fulham made it really hard for them. They are that team to, hard to break down. I also think that Harry Wilson is a very underrated player. I know he's getting on now, but whenever you watch him, he can change the game, and I think he troubled that Arsenal defence as well with his late runs, his shooting. But injuries have impacted him so much. He could have probably played in Arsenal, I reckon, if he didn't stop getting injured.
Khush, I saw you shaking your head to talk about Gyökeres. I know you don't rate him, but
I don't.
what do you think of him so far this season? Like, is he still going to kick on? I mean, it's only 8 Premier League games, about 3 Champions League games, so still quite early. So it has the goals, to be fair.
What else is there to say? He's not the. I said it at the start. He's gonna score goals. He's not gonna score as much as he did last season, and it's happening. Portuguese strikers don't translate into the Premier League. I've said it. I said it from the start. You can't say I haven't said it from the start. But the difference is somehow Arsenal getting the wins while playing with a striker, without using the striker. Because in terms of Gyökeres, he does remind me a bit of Haaland in terms of the way he plays. He can't touch a ball for shit. And then it just bobbles off him, and that's one of the main things. I think with the teams he's played in the Champions League, he's a very physical player. I don't think those teams are able to handle physical players, apart from Atletico. But then again, it's Atletico, they conceded like three set pieces. I think the only one that wasn't a set piece was Martinelli's goal. I have my opinion on him. I think he is going to score goals. I don't think he's going to score many. I think he's still going to struggle with the Premier League this season, and that's what I think.
To be fair, there's one clip I saw at the time and it actually got me thinking. So maybe both of you can give me insight on this. There's a clip, I think they were playing Sunderland, I believe, or the team before Sunderland. I think it was Newcastle Sunderland, the teams before that. Someone was saying that Arsenal are not used to playing with a centre forward. They're not used to feeding him in. And then they were playing some clips as well. And in this clip, right, Arsenal went into the attacking team. I believe it was Sunderland, but I'm not too sure. I'll be lying if I say I'm sure, but I think it was Sunderland. They went into the attacking final. I forgot who had the ball and whatever. You saw Gyökeres making a run to the left side of the defender, and it was free. The person looked up, but was not looking for for Gyökeres, and then gave it to the right. When he did that, Gyökeres switched again, went in behind the defender again. Great space, like literally, there's no space. You put it in his channel, he's got a free run. Again, they didn't look for him. Did that 2 more times in that same phase of play. where he changes, he was literally on goal by himself. So is it a thing of like Arsenal are not used to having someone to feed and they're getting used to that as well? So is he suffering from that? Because that's actually, I think, a valid point. Because they're not used to looking for a striker. They're used to playing within themselves. Remember when City didn't have a striker? It's kind of the same thing. They're used to that
Yeah,
kind of system. So is it a thing of they need to start looking for him more?
potentially, but then Arteta should be doing that in training then, and then they should be doing these not set pieces, but like these types of scenarios where he is doing the same thing, and then the players should be looking for him, and that should be down to training. I agree in some cases they're not used to a striker, but again, it's 8 games, and he hasn't really impressed me. I don't think he's impressed many people. Yeah. What else can I say? I think Arsenal are doing really well. I don't think he's doing really well. He's just in a good team.
Fair. Nah, I hear you in that. Moving on, I mean, potential title contenders at the moment, but moving on to Sunday, we had Spurs and Aston Villa. Are we seeing the return of Aston Villa back to that team they were? Or is it Spurs being Spurs? Because Aston Villa have now like quietly put on a good, decent run of form here now. Again. So
4
is
games
Aston
in a
Villa
row.
like slowly coming back? That's what I'm saying. So are they slowly coming back now to that team they were? Or is it Spurs being Spurs? Or is it kind of like a mixture of both? Rich, what do you think?
Mixture of both for me. Because Spurs started the season really well. I mean, they beat Man City 2-0. You know, it proves in the pudding sort of thing. But I just think that they're just going back to their old Spursy way. And they somehow managed to do it. They play really well. They've got really good players. Thomas Frank's a great manager. But again, it's not clicking for them. But equally, Villa have hit some good form. And I think the international break, especially for someone like Morgan Rogers, has just given him that extra confidence he needed. Because he scores for England and he scores a blinder against Tottenham. And just the rest of the squad, I just think they're starting to feel back in there. And Buendia, again, I still think he's a championship player, but he's now feeling his way back into the squad, being a bit more of a playmaker that they have been missing, and taking that reliance off someone like John McGinn. So if John McGinn's not having a good game, they can have Buendia can come on and play, or if Tillemans not having a good game, they're starting to again have more backups, I think. And their goal, by the way, their second goal was incredible. I don't know if you've seen it, but
It
It's a
was.
great goal.
It was a good
Left
goal.
Travis
But
Simmons in the
now,
dust.
and are we now looking at potentially starting Marlon over Watkins in that centre forward position? Like, does Marlon kind of connect the team a bit more, or do we still need to give Watkins his flowers and just say, listen, you're my striker, just start. It will happen. Kush.
I think currently
I
yes.
think
But
I think with Villa, I think you've had success for the past 2 seasons, and you can't afford your striker not to be like hitting top stride, especially at this critical point in the season where you do need to start getting some points up. I think I agree. I think Marlon is the correct choice because he's able to link play together. But what I'm finding mad is that even though he had so much hype to him, and that now he's at Aston Villa's, Jadon Sancho is not getting a look in because of his attitude.
That is
I
true.
think
And
if he had the correct attitude, he'd perfectly suit this team because he's got that he's able to play make and he's able to dribble the ball, and he's not doing that. He's messing up himself. And yeah, I agree with Rich. I think with Emi Buendia, he is a championship player, but he's proving that he can still kind of do it. But if he could do it for a long period of time, because he has had his injury problems as well. So it depends on what happens. And I think Spurs were a bit off. I think you look at a player like Xavi Simmons, who everyone comes with a big hype coming from the Bundesliga. He was left in the dust by Buendia, and that's a bit of a problem, isn't it?
But talking about Spurs though, is it as simple as that? Because my feeling is, and feel free to chime in, Rich. Spurs at the beginning of the season, Thomas Frank, they went to the vision. All right. He wanted to play a 4-2-3-1, in my opinion. And that's why they tried to sign two attacking midfielders before they signed Xavi Simons. The first one, I really forgot who he was. I'm trying to remember. Please remind me. I'll remember later. Second one became Morgan Gibbs-White. We thought it got him, but then turns out he refused and then he went back. And then, so it was first Morgan Gibbs-White, and then he was made to sign an extension at Forest.
It was
Then they
Eze.
went for Eze. Eze then chose Arsenal. Then Eze chose Arsenal. So now, into the season, they now have to get Xavi Simons, of which at that time already they found success playing a 4-3-3. Now Thomas Frank is trying to put it back where he's playing a 4-2-3-1 with Xavi Simons in the middle because he wants an attacking midfielder. And is it the transition of like changing from a 4-3-3 to that 4-2-3-1, which is kind of causing them not to gel as much? And I also personally think like when they have Richarlison in the team, they play better than they do without Richarlison in the team.
Yeah. I still don't rate
I think that's
Richarlison.
fair comment.
So,
I think he's
No.
I think he's. I don't think he's that player, but I think they are screaming for a player like Richarlison who will attack the box and try to do all the flashy stuff in the goals. Just that player that has got that bit of an ego to him, if you get what I mean. I think their wingers, I think it's Oddbert and Tell. They're not. They didn't do. Pardon?
Odegaard.
Oddbert. Yeah, I don't think they're doing too well.
Yeah, that's that.
And I think that the attack that game wasn't too. I think they got lucky with the deflection. With was it a deflection of Bentancur? I think it just dropped nicely to Bentancur. I think overall that game they didn't play well.
So yeah. Now I feel it. Fingers crossed Spurs can, get their, act together as well.
Why?
But I think they won in the Champions League, didn't they? So
No, they drew.
Yeah.
They drew 0-0 to
Moving
Monaco.
on. Oh, I thought they didn't win
No.
because I remember those were fair play. Oh gosh. All right, moving on to the piece de la resistance, the old Manchester United against Liverpool at Anfield, and United came out 2-1 winners. I think that there's so much around this game to talk about. So the first thing I'm going to speak about in this case is going to be Liverpool, actually, before we go into Man U, because I want to speak about my team in a glowing manner after I've talked about Liverpool. Liverpool at the moment, that's 4 losses in a row for them. So dipping form. We spoke about at the beginning of the season, they're being consistent with results and not performance. And now it seems that the performance has caught up to them as well. So what do we think this is? I think this is down to Slot. I'm just going to give a quick breakdown first of what I think is wrong with Slot. I think the first thing he's done is he's brought in all these players, which is fair, which I didn't think he needed to do. For example, I think as a manager, you also need to be competent enough. You can't allow them to sign Ekitike and Isak in the same window. You know what I mean? You have to choose one. And Ekitike hit the ground running. Now you've got Isak now trying to force Isak into the team at the expense of a player who's red hot. So now, like, literally have the chance of making Ekitike very sad and, upset and demoralizing and whatever when he's in form. That's the first thing. Second thing as well, he's not set up his defense quite well. Kirkes has come up and he's not instructing Kirkes on what to do exactly necessarily as well, which I don't think is actually down to Kirkes. I think it's down just to management of Kirkes because now he's got Gakpo, who he's not really like a natural winger as well. Frimpong is not playing what Frimpong to play. He's not playing. It's changed. You're leaving Van Dijk and Konate a bit more exposed. So I think this is down to the manager. What do you think, Khush?
Yeah, I think so as well. I don't think it's purely down to the manager because he's not the one that's saying I want. He's given a list of players that he's wanted, and Liverpool have given it. It was like 480 million he spent this summer. So I'm going to go through each player that he's got. First off, Ekitike has been probably the best one out of the bunch. Frimpong looks like he can't cross into a barn door. He's not the same as how he was at Leverkusen. for some reason, Kirkish looked very lost in that game. He didn't know how to deal with Mbeumo or Ahmad, and that led to the goal because he wasn't too tight on Ahmad. Then you got Ben 10, Mr. Florian Wirtz, who at that point didn't have a goal or assist in 10 games. And he's come with this price tag and this tag of a future generational prospect. Who else did they bring in? I think one big loss from that team is losing Luis Diaz, who was like that engine on that wing who would pressurize the defense. And they haven't actually done any. If you looked at Liverpool in the game, they were not pressing from the front, which they normally do. And they look very like, not, what's the word? They look very vulnerable throughout that game. Like, even though they were attacking a lot, the best chances probably came from us, which is just shocking. And yeah, I think Liverpool are very vulnerable and fragile.
Rich, what do you think here? Like, what's the problem with Liverpool?
I think Khush has hit the nail on the head with all of it, really. They're just not gelling as a team. I don't think Slot knows his best 11. I think Mo Salah is suffering from actually not having Trent Alexander there. Frimpong would more or less run the inside rather than the outside, like Trent used to do. And I just don't think it's given Mo Salah the space. And I think one of the reasons why they had such a great season last one is because Salah was on top form again. Now that he's not, they're struggling a lot. And I also think it's down to a lot of the players are in their last 2 years of their contract. And I like to think I like to have a theory of players seem to play amazing when they're in the last year of their contract to get a new one. And then after that, they sort of put their boots up. And you think Van Dijk, 2-year contract, Salah, 2-year contract. Konate, he's in his last year, but he's not. He's breaking that sort of philosophy. But I just think they've got what they wanted, and they're a bit like, well, we've won the league now. I've got my 2-year contract. Fans love me. Is there a bit of arrogance there to be like, I don't have to put much effort in, or is it just the case they're struggling? It could be either, really. But I agree what you're saying, as what you said as well, is but they bought too many players in for too many positions, and they haven't cemented in some of the others.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing as well.
Liverpool
One thing I look
well.
at.
I feel with Liverpool, when they won the Premier League last season, it was purely a Jurgen Klopp side. I think me and Josh had a talk about this. Josh was saying they used a double pivot, but I think if you look at this now, it's an onslaught side where he's brought in the players that he's wanted, and they're trying to play an onslaught way. But if you looked at last season, they were playing a Jurgen Klopp way. They were high pressing, high intensity, rock and roll football, and that's what purely got them to the Premier League. And I agree. I think they should have cut their. I don't think they should. It's a bad thing to say cut their losses with Mo Salah and Verge because they've done so much for the club. But I think they should have let them go for more money than they would have got. I think giving them contracts now, I think they're just setting themselves up to sell them in the next summer window.
You know me, boys. I love tactics, and I think as much as I agree with both of you, like for example, Salah, Verge falling down because of the contract a little bit, and too many signings, and all that. I also think Slot has to take blame here. Here's why I say so. First of all, Salah does not work well with the centre forward, so I think Salah's always going to struggle this season, and especially adapting to having a proper centre forward who is more likely to actually be making those runs into the box and all that. So that leaves a lot less space for Salah to actually manipulate into the box and score as many goals because there's someone already occupying that space because the defender's already on that person. That's number one. Number two, someone put out a very interesting picture the other day on Twitter, and I think I'll find it out. I'll try to put it in if I can find it, where if you look at Liverpool's play, right, with that pivot what Khush was talking about, there's a time at Man U we complained that there was so much space in midfield when Ten Hag was coaching. because what he would do is he would tell Bruno to play as almost as a false 10, as a false striker, just behind the striker, and then those two will be left exposed, and there'll be a lot of space in the middle, and they couldn't connect the midfield to the creative guy, to Bruno at that time, and then whatever. It's the same thing. And because of that, Kirkes, when he gets the ball, he cannot pass to anyone. So he's almost in no man's land, because when he gets the ball, there's literally, I think Kirkes had the ball at that time. There was literally no one near him to pass to. So he's lost as well. Last season under Trent used to come into midfield and then occupy that space. So there's always an option in midfield, whatever. Now there's no Trent. Frimpong is an overlapper. He doesn't come. He doesn't invert. So that's the thing. So now these are things Slot has to think through. And like you're saying, he doesn't know his 11. He doesn't know he's going to start. Ekitike, Isak, he's trying to force Isak into playing. He's going to play on the left. He's going to play on the right. So I think, but then I was annoyed with Slot's comments as well when you were saying, "Oh, they should have we were training for Sesko and all that," and I'm just like, "Come on, so what if Man United changed the player they're gonna play with? It's your job as a coach as well." But yeah, moving on to United,
I agree.
first back-to-back wins
and
with yeah.
Sorry. He made a
Sorry.
comment as well. He made a comment saying that they're playing the low block and going for long balls, but then in the end, that's what caused the problem, isn't it, for the first goal? And they weren't able to handle it, and ultimately it got us. I'm gonna say this: our first win at Anfield in 10 years. 10 years. The last person to score at Anfield for a win was Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, that was a long wait and all that for that win. And to be fair play to Amorim, because Amorim caught that. I was watching, I forgot who it was, but it was someone on Sky Sport. I was like, actually, they were being competent that time. He was saying that the reason they dropped Sesko instead, like they put Mount at the what you call it, and the starting lineup instead of Sesko, it's for those long balls. They wanted Konate and Van Dijk to win them, so that we would contest for the second balls. And for the first ball, like we see it, like it goes long. There's no United player contesting. When the second ball comes, though, every player is literally narrow at United and winning that ball. And that's where we got our success and all that. So fair play to Amorim. I mean, Amorim actually coached a masterclass here. So I think my question to you, Rich, is having United done this, we've seen this before, though, this movie with United, they play a big team, they do a good performance. The next time, they don't play well. Do you think this is the kick on that United is going to get?
I think it possibly could be, because I personally don't think that. I think that United got a bit lucky against Liverpool as well, and it was just one of them games where they've run their luck, and I think we'll kick them on. You think Gakpo hit the post 3 times on a different day? All 3 of them could go in, and the score line's completely different. That could have been the luck that the United need to push them forward. And they got Brighton next, I believe, which again would be a tough game for you. If you could win that, I think your chances and your motivation will take you along. So ultimately, I would say it is, you could be turning the corner. However, I think you can make a better decision after the Brighton game, whether it was just pot luck that you've managed to win 2 games, or whether you've actually, Amorim's gone, right, we can kick forward.
Fair. Khush, what do you think the way forward is for United at this point? Like, do we keep on? Do you think we push on, or do you still think we have some of the problems? Because I think in United points of view, one of the things was the keeper. We had no keeper for so long. And Lammers has come in, done the basics, and it's given our defense kind of like, a push on as well.
Our defense looks so much more steady, would be the correct word. They look more comfortable with the ball compared to when we had like Onana or Bayende in goal, because they look scared to pass it back. But with Lammins, they would pass it back to him, and he was good with the long ball. And then I think the previous game he was good with passing it from the back. There's still problems there. You can't deny there's not problems, and you can't say be delirious and say there isn't any problems at all. I think we have a major consistency problem. It's not good that Amarim doesn't know his starting 11 yet. Especially now that we're here. I think our summer signings have been very good so far, though. I think Cunha, even though he hasn't scored yet, he's been proving to be a good asset in the terms of he's running with the ball, he can hold up the ball. And then you have Mbermo as well, who's being very, he can be very clinical and have that killer pass. But it doesn't mask the fact that we need more time to get through it, really. I think this consistency is the key. I think our aim should be to get back into Europe, be it Europa League or Champions League, but ideally United should be in the Champions League.
Fair. I think that's a goal for us too as well. So fingers crossed we can actually kick on, and yeah, we'll speak more about United after this weekend, and fingers crossed to win. But to the piece I've been looking forward to the most this evening, Rich, your Hammers. So another 2-0 loss there. Oh, I'm not sure if we've lost Rich, but it's another 2-0 loss there for West Ham United. And all that. We'll go to Khush at the moment whilst we're sorting out Rich at the moment. West Ham, they don't seem to be getting it on.
Yeah. West Ham is that team, isn't it, where you expect them to actually push on. Their recruitment is awful. They remind me of United as well, with their owners being awful. I think overall that team just needs a whole revamp. I think they've they've got so many problems going on there. They have the fans on their back, and I was watching Talksport, and one fan was saying, "Oh, we need a new owner to build us a new stadium." And then the person who was, I forgot his name, he said that won't sort out the problem. You're deluded if it does. I think there's just so many problems. I think they need a striker. They need a whole new midfield. And I feel bad for Nuno because he's coming to a team that's just so disjointed. And it's just, what else can you say, really? What else can you say?
Yeah, I feel bad for Nuno too because I think he deserves better than this, in my opinion. I think he deserves to come into a team which is willing to back him, number one. Two, he's a good manager. You back him, it's going to give you results. I mean, we saw it Forest, even though it turned out sour. But that was not even the team, that was just the relationship. So I feel bad for um for Nuno, and I hope he actually does pick up, and I actually hope they do support him in January if they can. But moving on to Brentford, listen, these guys are still being a bit more defiant. Another win for them. Igor Thiago, what a player is proving to be as well. So Brentford, how do you see them going on the season? Mid-table, maybe?
Yeah, yeah, I think they're good. Don't get me wrong. They beat us very comfortably, but they just I still have that feeling they've just lost so many players. They've lost their manager and everything. That's been their like I'm gonna do that analysis. It's been their world, basically. They've been a hard fighting team. It's just they need they just to get them back to where they were, they need just time to do that. And I think they've never been that club to push forward that with the recruitment that's been like, oh, I didn't realize they want to go for that player or that player. Right? They've mainly gone for very unknown players. Like for example, like Kevin Schade, very good in Germany. I had
Mhm.
never heard of them until he came to the league. And then Igor Thiago, never heard of him prior to this. Maybe I think he was in the Club World Cup. Prior to that, I'd never heard these. If you know what I mean, they're big players in their own countries and that league, their leagues. But in terms of like overall, I think they just get such unknown players, and it's just with unknown players, you never know what you're gonna get. You've seen it with Southampton where they got unknown players and they went down. You kind of seeing it with Wolves right now. They got unknown players and it's not working. But it's just that's the case with them. I think it just needs time. I think give the manager some time and let's see what happens. They've been a surprise. That's what I would say. They've been a very big surprise because sometimes they'll be like, "Whoa, I can't believe this is Brentford right now," and then sometimes they're like, "Is this Brentford?" Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. All right, I think we're just gonna run through a few predictions, not all of them, for this weekend. So I'm just gonna pick our selected ones. We'll be back with full predictions next week, but starting with Man United Brighton. Do you think we kick on and we do it?
Again, with United, which United would show up? Because I know back-to-back wins, you're going to have your
Facts.
confidence high, but could the confidence lead to complacency, which can be the case for multiple teams. But you have to be really careful with United because they can get complacent. So it's just the fact is what United will show up really. Will it be the United that came for Liverpool? And I forgot who we played before Liverpool. Yeah, the team that we played before that.
Sunderland. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
Sunderland.
was
It was
for
Sunderland.
United. It
Are we
was
going to get the
Sunderland,
team
yeah.
that? Are we going to get the teams that played Sunderland and Liverpool? Or are we going to get the teams that played Brentford? We don't know what we're going to get still,
Yeah.
and one of the main problems with United as well is that they're not consistent. We have the talent. It's just consistency is the key. And with I've seen with Lamins as well, we seem a bit that I don't know if you noticed. I feel that we're a bit more comfortable in that sense, where since he's been in, he's been able to do the
We have.
fundamental, but it's just who do we get?
Yeah. I think for me as well, I think yeah, it depends on who we get because we turn off the big matches. It's not the smaller matches which we win. So, but I think Lamens has been a huge improvement to what we had because there's a bit more confidence there. I still have problems in the midfield, so I'm gonna go with faith.
I
As
think
in,
I think with
in another
I
episode,
think with sorry, I'm gonna go with Mount playing with Bruno in the 8. I know you don't like it, but them two, if you notice, they do swap around quite a bit because Mount does drop back in, and then Bruno goes into the 10, and then they swap around. Even though Bruno's mainly playing as the 8. I don't know if you've noticed that, but I've kind of noticed that, and it seems like the team's ticking better
I
when Mount
do,
is playing in that role.
but that's my problem. In attack, I love United. In attack, I love United. Attacking, we're kind of fluid. We get up. For example, there's this thing where just the week Liverpool was pressing us really high and really hard, but we're able, even Shaw, like kind of touched the ball wrong, and then you had to run back and get it, and he still was able to play it out, and we're still able to play it out, and that's the play which ended up in, I think Bruno, is it clipping the post? So in attack, I love it. In defense, though, that's where I have a problem because it seems like Bruno he has still got the mind of a 10. So he wants to press, and when he presses, it leaves like space at the back, which the other central midfielder has to cover, and then it's an onslaught. So in defense, when you're out of possession, that's where it concerns me. So I would love it if we win 2-1.
Ah,
I would love it if we win 2-1. Um,
as
but
the saying stands, Rome wasn't built in a day.
true,
But this Rome's been
true.
building for like 10
Uh,
years.
the foundation is cracked, bro. We had to start from the top, from the beginning, sorry. Now we've got Arsenal Crystal Palace. Who do you think is going to win that one?
It's again that it's those types of teams, isn't it? Where it's like you never know what you're going to get. But I'm going to say 1-0 Arsenal. I think they're just going to grind it out again. This grind, the set piece and grind FC. It should be called Grind FC, Rav.
In this one, actually, I think Crystal Palace will crack Arsenal
Um,
first, actually, because to be fair, Crystal Palace off a set piece, they're deadly too. So I think Crystal Palace might get the first goal here. which will then force Arsenal to come out, and that's when the game will get interesting, in my opinion. So I think it'll be 2-1 win to Arsenal, but I think it'll be a very interesting one. If like it'll only happen if Crystal Palace score first. If Arsenal score first, 1-0, in my opinion. And then Spurs and
Friday's
Everton
game.
at
Leeds West Ham.
well, the main man himself is having technical difficulties, but I think that's an easy win for Leeds, to be fair. Like Leeds is just gonna take that one, in my opinion.
It's either Leeds going to be winning like 2-1 or 2-0, or it's just going to drop out into a 0-0.
That is true. That is true, but yeah, I don't see any way out of West Ham for this. Leeds are home as well. To be fair, Leeds gonna have their home. It is Ellen Road. Yeah, no chance for West Ham, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be 2-0
yeah,
Leeds.
that.
2-0 Leeds.
Do you want to go through all of them quickly, or just do? Okay, fine. Let's quickly do that. Chelsea, Sunderland.
Yeah, let's
Quick
go
hit. Which
through
one do you
stuff
think's
today.
gonna win?
Chelsea, Sunderland.
Yeah.
It's Chelsea in it. It's always Chelsea, bro. 2-1 Chelsea.
Yeah, same. I agree. This one's gonna be interesting though. Newcastle, Fulham. 1-1, in my opinion.
I'm gonna go 1-0 Fulham. I don't think Newcastle can will be able to break down Fulham that easily. Like, yeah.
Don't underrate Voltemade, man. Nick Voltemade, he's a striker. I've seen his touches. I mean, his goal against
Great goal
Brighton.
this
Ooh.
weekend. Great goal
So
this
yeah,
weekend.
this is what I'm saying. This guy's got the takers, bro. So I wouldn't put it past him to score. So I think it's 1-1, to be fair. We've spoken United, Brighton, Brentford, Liverpool.
I didn't speak about Man U Brighton. I'm gonna go 1-0 United. Cunha to score.
Oh yeah, you didn't give a prediction. Yeah, fair. And what about Brentford, Liverpool?
Brentford Liverpool. I think Liverpool got a win this week in the Champions League. I think this is their bounce back. I think they're gonna go 2-0.
Fair, I feel you on that. Bournemouth and Forest. That's an easy win for Bournemouth, in my opinion. 3-0. Semenyo at 2.
Yeah. I think it's gonna be 1-1.
Fair.
Let me
it's Dash's first.
let me just put that there.
I think
Dash won his first
Dash
game
ball
today.
obviously is going to be in full effect there. Say again?
Dash won his first game
Dash
today
won his first game today. Oh, snap.
in the Europa League.
Still, man,
1-1.
Bournemouth's going to have too much with him. Bournemouth is going to have too much with him, in my opinion. Like, so these guys are red hot. They're red hot. Semenyo's doing a madness. So, yeah, I think if it was like Dash's maybe third week, yeah, they're going to be too hard. But then now, nah, never. Then we're going to go, we talked about Arsenal, Crystal Palace, and then Aston Villa and Man City. That's a good one as well.
I think City's gonna do him 2-0. City is in Spurs.
Fair. I think Villa has picked up form at the right time, at the right time for this game. So I think it's going to be like a 2-2 or something like that, or a 3-2 to City. But I think it's going to be tight, especially with Villa being home.
That would be a great game.
Yeah.
That'd be a great game.
It'll be great. That's what I'm saying. It's a great game. Like, I'm going to watch this one because I think Villa has just picked up at the right time. So, yeah. Wolves, Burnley. I see this as like a 2-1 win to Burnley, to be fair. I guess Wolves get their first win of the season there. Even though, like, Wolves are going to be,
You think Wolves are gonna get their first win of the
on my
season?
heart, but yeah, I have to go with Burnley. No, I'm hoping they will because they're going to be home, aren't they? In the
I'm gonna
League.
go
But
0-0.
yeah,
I think it's gonna be a
it's going to be
snooze.
Burnley too.
I'm going 0-0. It's gonna be a snooze.
It's going to be a snooze. But the game I'm looking forward to as well this weekend as well. Everton Spurs.
Jack Grealish is
Everton
back.
Spurs.
Everton's confidence will be high with Jack Grealish back. I think Everton will beat them 1-0.
Fair. Nah, I feel you. With this one, Spurs, you never know with Spurs. But I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think 2-2 with this one. Yeah, it's just going to end as a 2-2.
You're hoping that this weekend brings goals.
I need to see them goals, bro, because like the goals we got this weekend were mad. We got some good goals this week, like some good goals this week. So I need more goals this weekend. And like I said, that Sunday, like if I'm just chilling at home and I'm watching Villa Man City at 2:00 and then Everton Spurs at 4:30 and both of them are goals, I'm happy. I won't even lie to you. Like that would be my weekend set. So yeah. But anyway, with that being said, we look forward to seeing you next week. Khush, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And I'll say thank you on behalf of Rich as well.
Yeah, the ball clarinet unfortunately had technical difficulties, but he'll be here next week, I'm sure. And we'll see you later. Take care.